This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. It's episode 196 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. Make sure you are subscribing to Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can see it on the top above me right there. You can subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you are subscribing and sharing it. And also you can listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Make sure you hashtag Queens Baseball because that's where it's at. And I got a good guest today, a good friend, the Shea brother, I like to say, my guy Keith from Shea and Sons. Keith, it's great to have you back on the show today. And this is the first time we have talked on air since the signing of Juan Soto and since your brother disappeared on us on camera. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, man. I hope you're good. I hope your family's good. So if anybody's wondering, Keyshawn is fine. He's going through the motions. Yeah, I mean, it's funny thinking back to that night. We had such a wow moment. And now, I feel like so much has happened since then that it just feels so long ago that I don't really, I kind of don't know what happened to that night. I just need that feeling restored. And it's so funny saying that because we have maybe one of the best teams in baseball. So it's so funny. It's just thinking about his reaction now. I totally forgot about that. It's funny you remind me of that. But you're good. How are you? You're good. Everyone's good.
We're good. Mrs. Subway Shea's good. Little Subway
Beautiful.
Shea's getting big.
Yes.
So we I'll have to send you a video, but
yes,
we
please.
got him saying we kind of got him saying "Let's go Mets" in sound. So it was there. The motion's there. I might have to show everybody that. It was pretty funny and pretty cool to see that. He's gonna be a Met fan, so
hell yeah.
He's got a lot of years of Soto to watch, and yeah, it really feels. This was the first I want to say off season where it felt like it was never ending, right? From beginning to end. 2023 season, it was rough going into the off season, not much happening. Yeah. You go into this off season right here, and it just was nonstop from the Soto talk into signing Pete Alonso, and then we went right to spring. So it was just all of us had so much content to put out this whole off season, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of that and to be a part of our annual winter meetings show. Everything happens during that show, from Eric Fetty all the way to Juan Soto. So it's a lot of fun. Glad to have you back on, and let's start off with a player that I think really needed to step up. And I know he got a lot of flack. I don't know if I really nailed on him for not playing well, but if I did, it was the fact that I believe in this player, and that's Brandon Nimmo. And he's finally starting to heat up. Last 7 games, batting .389, has 3 homers, 11 RBIs, 2 walks, and a 1.373 OPS against Washington on Monday. That big game for him. 4 for 6, 2 homers, including a 3-run shot and a grand slam, had the 9 RBIs and 4 runs. He was batting 6th that time. So I want to all of us to remember where he's batting in the order, because he's just been all over the place. The Mets won 19-5 there. And if you remember, kind of tied Carlos Delgado, who against the Yankees on, I think it was June 27th, 2008, went 3 for 5, 2 homers, same thing, 3-run home run, grand slam, had the 9 RBIs, had 2 runs. The Mets won 15-6 that day. And then you go to this Friday against St. Louis. He was 3 for 3. I think he was on base 5 times. Had a homer, 1 RBI, 3 runs, and I think 2 walks. And he batted 4th. Mets won 9-3. I want to know your thoughts on where Brandon Nimmo needs to be in this lineup, because he's so important, especially with Francisco Alvarez just coming back. And Mark Vientos kind of in a sophomore slump right now. So Brandon Nimmo really needs to be that 4th guy. Now, him being the 4th guy in an important part of the lineup, I don't know if that means him batting 4th necessarily, because I don't think he's a cleanup hitter.
Yeah.
But where is the best spot to put Nimmo to best utilize him?
So with Nimmo, it's it kind of goes back to, so when I look at Nimmo, I kind of view Nimmo in a different scale than most of the players. And that even goes for Juan Soto. I view Nimmo the way I view Nimmo is like the growing pain that was the 2023 season. And I know that's a lot to like digest, but that's when he started evolving into a power hitter. That's when he started swinging first. That's why he was really, lifting the ball, and he started to become the evolution of what he is now. And now it's like he's evolving again, because now they have him in the cleanup hole. Now they have him in the 6 hole. And now they are asking him to do things that he's never really done before that he can do, but he is adapting. And it's taken him some time, which I actually think he's succeeded in these roles, because you don't really see this from any players. It just, you have to be patient with it. Where I think he fits best is the 6 hole. And I'm okay with the honorary moment where he can clean up, because, getting the kind of the cobwebs out early in April is fine, where he can, you could trust him probably later in the year to do it. His numbers and for his habits as a hitter, to me, fit well in the 6 hole, because he is a little swing first happy now. He's very power driven. And occasionally he can get on base with a walk. And that's funny to say that about Nimmo, because he's normally one of the more pro walk guys, on the team. But now, because he's very swing happy, he's willing to swing at anything in the zone, whether he gets results or not. Why I like him in the 6 hole personally, per se, is that you're going to get damage from the top 3 guys, no matter what, regardless if one is hitting or not, right? So then you got 4, 5, and 6, and that's some sort of combination with the DH, Vientos, and Nimmo. And personally, if you can have Nimmo batting behind those guys, where he traditionally has the better on-base percentage, that means they're going to have to pitch to the 4th and 5th guys. And I feel like that lengthens the lineup. And then whatever you get out of 7, 8, and 9 is kind of cherry on top, right? And you're getting actually production more than you think from 79, with Alvy and Acuna really doing their thing.
And Torrens too.
And Torrens as well. I mean, really, this is kind of crazy to say with this team with such a great lineup. I truly believe in this lineup. They kind of have an issue in the 4 hole, and it's kind of a revolving door. And I think they're trying to get guys comfortable for that when they need to count on them at the end of the year. That 4 hole guy is going to be the key to the whole lineup, honestly. It balances the top and it balances the bottom. And I think when you have Nimmo in the 6 hole, if you look at his numbers traditionally in the 6 hole, he's really, really good there. Really, really good. But if you can have him there while you can establish the 4 hole guy, I think it makes the lineup, it takes it to a different dimension, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the fact that also that he had struggled to start, you weren't getting the, Soto he's been playing well. I mean, he hasn't had the power numbers out there just yet. He's been playing well. Him and the rest of the lineup have just not been coming up with runners in scoring position. And shout out to the chat, 79 people of you in here right now. Rosie K saying, the offense scares me. It's very hot and cold. I'd like to see some consistency there. Jeff Cohen saying, I agree with Rosie. Those 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position has to improve. Like, who is the ideal person? To me, it's Mark Vientos to hit in the 4 spot. But right now, he's just not coming through. He's kind of swinging like Pete Alonso did in previous season, 2023, 2024, where he's swinging at breaking balls outside of the strike zone, and he's having a hard time getting through. And we see spurts of him starting to come out of it. The at-bats are better. Yeah. But considering the fact that we have to kind of rely on him in a big spot, I don't know if that is hindering him and his maturation into being a 4 hole hitter. But I don't know how much I trust also the DH in Starling Marte, who hasn't really hit much, as well as Jesse Winker, who both of them have just been okay. Not your typical DH that would hit 4 or even 5. Who do you slot in front of right now? Brandon Nimmo, if he's batting 6, we talked about Francisco Alvarez. A lot of people talk about him being the power hitter, hitting 30 home runs. But what I see from him, and I don't know if you agree with this, I see a lot of Yadier Molina. And Yadier Molina was not a power hitter. He was a good hitter. He just wasn't a power hitter. And we saw Francisco Alvarez at his best, actually, on Friday. He hit 3 singles, opposite field, got 3 RBIs. Big game for him. I take that any day of the week over, a home run if he's going to produce like that. Because once he gets home run happy, forget it. And then you got Acuna getting on base, stealing bases. So that bottom of the lineup, like you said, has been good. Tyrone Taylor has fit in well in his spots and come up big. that 4 and 5 is the key, like you said, to this lineup being complete.
Yeah, I see. For me, I want the free swinger, whoever it is, to be batting fifth, because essentially, if you kind of do the odds, if somebody gets on base between the first three guys, and that four-hole guy, right, ideally, right, is the main threat, right? And if you get him on base, that means someone scored. And whatever you get from the fifth hole guy is just great, because you have Nimmo, who takes a lot of pitches, or who could swing at a pitch in his zone to bring everybody in. So ideally, in a perfect world, that fifth hole guy, I would prefer to be a free swinger. Now, the fourth hole guy, I would prefer that fourth hole guy to be the best guy who can hit in the highest situations possible. I know it's going to sound crazy, but I think at some point later in the year, I would not shock me if you see someone now batting in the 2-hole and shifting Soto and Alonso down to 3 and 4. It's not going to happen yet, but I think in some fashion, it would not shock me if you see maybe a Vientos move up to the 2-hole.
Yep.
You shift down Soto and Alonso to 3-4. The fifth hole guy, it could be a free swinger. I don't know who that fifth hole guy is. And then Nimmo 6, and then you round out 7, 8, 9. I think what they're doing is they're catering to Soto right now in the 2-hole, which fine, no problem. I mean, you spent all that money, you want to make sure it works. I think Francisco Lindor is going to die in the leadoff hole, which is fine. We all know how that works. He's the best leadoff hitter in baseball.
That's the most locked in position.
Yeah, and I think to really accommodate the season at some point later in the year, to maybe, and I talk about this a lot, I talk about taking these losses, taking all the bad moments in Met games and use them as fuel for the next game. These are good things. When we lose, it's hard to eat, but I understand why it's positive. Those 2 games in Arizona were great. They were perfect for the Mets. They needed a little bit of a punch in the mouth because they just came off 2 games where they scored 19 and then 8. And let me tell you something, you're not going to win the World Series. You're going to go to the playoffs with winning games in this time of the year, but you're not going to win a World Series right now. So you need to find all your deficiencies early, along with getting your victories. And clearly running as a scoring position was a mistake. And then we're going to talk about Mendy with some of the mistakes he made. But what did that lead to? You got a game in St. Louis, and they woke up and they started doing things we haven't seen, pushing the ball the other way, hitting with Friday. We could talk about runners in scoring position issue with the Arizona series, but Friday night, they were tremendous with runners in scoring position and tremendous with 2 strikes, tremendous with 2 outs. They were awesome Friday night. That's probably one of the better performances. And in my opinion, they didn't score 19 runs. And I actually preferred that game more than the 19-run game, honestly, because they waited out the pitcher and then they figured him out and they went through the bullpen. They even hit their closer. So it was very encouraging to see that Friday night game, personally.
That's something too that we've gotten from last season from this the Mendy Mets, because Mendy has been able, and we'll talk about some of the things that have bothered us, minor things. I mean, everything. There's always something to analyze, from our view here. But what Mendy has done so well with this team is have them forget about the tough losses, move on to the next day, and get them going again. Look, they lost that series against Minnesota. What did they do? Won 7 in a row. Yep. They lost the series against Arizona. Does it spiral like it would have in the past? No. They won this game on Friday night. And it's big for this Mets team to continue to push, because even with teams that play so well from beginning to end, that dominate. We've seen it with the Dodgers outside of last season. We've seen it with the Dodgers where they dominate all season, and they could be a first round they could be a first round out of the playoffs. We saw it with the Braves as well. We've seen it with the Phillies.
Yeah.
Like it affects them if you don't go through some trials and tribulations. Yeah. So it's great to see how they bounce back. And I think that's something we should actually, and I'm glad that you brought it up, that we should really look into is when they have these bad losses, how are they going to bounce back from them? Like without runners in scoring position. They did it on Friday night, and it's good to see them continue to build. Now, when it comes to the lineup, I've talked, I think even in the offseason, I said, what if instead of having Soto hit second, put him at third, and put Mark Vientos at 2? That's when he hit the best last season, was right behind Lindor. Those two carried the offense for a while. And helped them get into the postseason with him hitting second. I mean, you even saw it in the playoffs when they walked to Lindor to load the bases, and this guy hits a grand slam. I mean, he has been so important to the offense, and I really, really want to get Mark Vientos going to a point where he's consistent again. Because, I posted a tweet a couple of days ago, and I think you laughed at it because someone was posting how maybe it's time to send Vientos down. The guy's bagged 300. We gotta, give him a chance to get himself back up and going again. And the only way he does that is by playing every day in this lineup. He's got Lindor, who's kind of like a mentor to him, and very excited to see this maturation continue with Mark Vientos, whether it includes trials and tribulations or not. He has to get himself going because we need him in this lineup and we need that power.
Absolutely. I think there needs to be a heavy investment in that young man because he is your starting third baseman moving forward. There's no question. He's going to be with the organization for another 6 years. So if you're going to invest in him sandwiched between the best leadoff hitter in baseball and your right fielder, right? That, to me, that's your best way to invest in that young man. And early in the year, I was against Soto in the 3-hole and Alonso in the 4-hole. But, I'm man enough to say after a month of watching it, I can see where it works, but there was a comment in the comment section where it says it's a little inconsistent. And there's been games where I feel the way I view a baseball game is a little bit different than the next person. I do see those inconsistencies, but I do feel like the lineup is in 3 parts. You got the top 3, the middle 3, and the bottom 3. And when the Mets are at their best, you forget that they're broken up into parts, or in my mind at least, and it's just the same batter from 1 through 9. They're all dangerous. That's how I view the evolution of the team, right? And that Friday night game was a good explanation of it. Like, I felt like the whole lineup was just going to do damage, and you forget about who's fourth, who's leadoff, who's this, who's that. What I see with the Soto and the 2-hole and Alonso in the 3-hole, I feel like that top-heavy lineup just kind of has more question marks from 4 through 8. And I'm saying 4 through 8 because I honestly think Acuna is a great 9-hole hitter. So I'll say 4 through 8. I feel like there's a lot of musical chairs going on. And I feel like that's where those inconsistent games, you could have a few games where, oh my God, and then a few innings, oh my God, and then 7 innings of nothing, or 3 games where I'm just like, what's going on? So I'm very more open to trying that out. And I think because what Mark Vientos provides to this team is pretty much, you can look at it like this. He is a carbon copy of the first baseman. He is just Pete Alonso. Yeah, he is just Pete Alonso at third base. If you're being honest with yourselves, he's probably not going to hit 50-something home runs in a year, but he can have multiple seasons of 30 plus. So what's the best way to do that? Sandwich him against the best guy who leads off a game, sandwich him against the best at bat on the lineup, and then could those 3 guys in front of Pete Alonso, and then you have Nimmo behind all that. And to your point, the 4th man, I love what you said, because the 4th man doesn't necessarily need to be the 4th man, but he is that 4th catalyst to help everything kind of, you know what I'm trying to say? So it wouldn't shock me. Maybe it's a long season where we just touched May. The lineup has been changed nonstop. It would not shock me if that top of the lineup gets adjusted at one point. And a lot of the guys on Twitter, I want to give them some love. They have mentioned this going into the season, so they deserve their credit for that. I was against it, but a month in, and to your point where you talked about in the winter, it looks like eventually it will get to that point. It really would.
Well, final thing on Vientos here, and to have him sandwiched between Lindor, you're gonna get good pitches,
yes,
especially with Soto behind you. So I think that has to be considered at some point during the season. And maybe that even helps Soto. Like, I know the talk is always you put your best hitters at the top of the lineup. You want them to get the most at bats. Yeah. But when you strategically place this lineup in a way that helps all these batters, they're going to get their at bats. They're going to get them if these guys are getting on base. Lindor's going to get on base. Soto's going to get on base, which means Alonso will get his at-bats to score the big runs. It's going to happen. There needs to be some jiggering around, I think, with the lineup eventually. And like you said, it's a long season. We'll possibly see it. One last thing when it comes to Brandon Nimmo. Yeah. And it has to do with center field to me. Like I know he's dealing still with this plantar fasciitis, and I don't know if there's still an knee injury involved or what. But I feel like if Tyrone Taylor's not playing a game, I'd rather have a hobbling Brandon Nimmo out in center field, who I know is going to make an outstanding catch here and there, over Jeff McNeil. You could put Jeff McNeil in left. He's a good left fielder. He's fine.
Yeah.
But to have McNeil in center field, especially when you got, fly ball pitchers out there, you need the defense out there, especially with a guy like Clay Holmes. I know he's a ground ball pitcher, but when he hits it in the air, you don't want to go into Jeff McNeil.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he got to go to Acuna as well. We haven't seen him play center field yet. But if Nimmo can get out there and play a center field for, even if it's just 7 innings, 5, 6, 7 innings, and you move him to left field later on to bring in Taylor. But Jeff McNeil, like Rosie K is saying, should not be playing center field. We've seen enough already.
It's so funny. Trust me, I share the sentiment. I'm not even sure why we're even trying this. But if you pull back the curtain, unfortunately, the Mets are using this analytical driven way of doing things. So what are they doing? They're saying, you know what? If we could stuff the outfielder named A, whoever it is, so far back in the outfield that he'll catch all the dangerous balls and let all the little bloops fall in front of them, will survive because the Mets pitching is good enough. And that's gambling, right? It's a dangerous gamble. And you notice, almost every time Jeff McNeil has been playing center, he has been very, very deep. And that's protecting him because, a real good center fielder can monitor backwards and forwards without any sort of real shift, right? So their defensive alignment always has that center fielder playing a very, very deep center field. And when it was Jose Siri out there, they kind of just let him roam, which was great, right? That was the whole point of Jose Siri. And kind of Tyrone Taylor is turning into a Gold Glover in front of our eyes. Yeah. But, God forbid Tyrone Taylor needs a few days off. You're looking at an extended run of Jeff McNeil in center field. Or I think his name is Azakar or something like that. So, Brandon Nimmo in center field, listen, I know that they're very scared to pull back that Band-Aid of certain things that they've done in past regimes. It seems that way. And I think that's a Band-Aid that David Stearns is very... Because remember, David Stearns...
I didn't even think of it that way, honestly. I'm glad you brought that up. I didn't even think of it that way, that they just want to get away from what these other regimes are doing. It's a great point.
David Stearns was the one who put his finger on Brandon Nimmo in left field. He was the guy. It wasn't a thing before David Stearns. So I think that's David Stearns' philosophy. Now, I can't say that is something that it's one of those things that I think I'm with you. I got to kind of sit back and let it, I guess, play out. Hopefully at some point, maybe this young kid Gilbert gets a chance to just spell, Tyrone Taylor or something like that. That is a very touchy subject. I honestly am worried every time McNeil's out there because I'm not the biggest McNeil fan, but I don't want him getting hurt. I don't want anybody in a position that's risked. I think, and it's also kind of like putting him in a position like Jeff McNeil. We all know Jeff McNeil to be a little bit of a hothead, right? Let's just say he has a bad day out there. That's not his position. And I could feel for the guy. He's, frustrated at that. And, it's something that he'll carry over. And there's just too much negative outcomes in my, listen, Jeff McNeil gets 10 starts in center field and we get to the playoffs, we'll all forget about it and laugh and say, David Stearns is the genius, right? But those are really, really tightening, your butt cheeks when you watch him out there. You're like, I don't know what's going on. So then again, this is why they have about 5 starters or 6 who are ground ball pitchers because they're playing the odds. So we have to just, fingers crossed and hopefully it don't bite them in the butt. But hey, man, listen, I don't think Nimmo's going to die if you put him a 1 game in center. But, they kind of are a little stubborn in their ways. So it is what it is.
John Sappenauer from Till Mets Do Us Part in the room. He's saying, I think Stearns' logic is this. Nimmo is below average in center field. Jeff is below average in left field. You're doubling your below average with that alignment, whereas Nimmo is a plus left fielder.
That's correct.
Gav Milano saying Nimmo has 2 left feet. Keep him out of center field.
If he had 2 left feet, then McNeil, You know, there was a ball hit like in the gap, and I know McNeil had no chance. And for anybody here who's played softball or anything, when you know you don't got a chance, you just put your glove up saying, I tried, and you are nowhere near the ball. And he did that. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I'm starting to feel bad for the poor guy, but what are you going to do, man?
And you got to play him so deep. I think where that struggles is like with a fast team like Washington, where now they're starting to stretch singles into doubles and doubles into triples, and players are scoring from all the way from first base because these guys are so deep.
Yes.
So that,
very good point. Very
you know
good
what?
point.
Honestly, even if he barely hits, just leave Tyrone Taylor out there. I think he's defensively. I think he's earned the opportunity to play center field on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens here. We got Armand in the chat as well as Mez talking about Blade Tidwell. It's Blade Tidwell Day today. Mets just tweeted that Tidwell got called up and will wear number 40. And Danny Young has been transferred to the 60-day IL. Austin Warren has been optioned to AAA, will be the 27th man for today, which leads into our next topic, and that is Blade Tidwell's debut for the Mets. 1-2, 5 ERA, 37 strikeouts in 5 innings pitched for, I think I got that wrong, how many innings pitched. I think he's pitched more innings, so I have to check that back up. But Mendy said his numbers
around that.
Are,
it's around it. Yeah.
Mendy said his numbers are inflated due to just tough luck on balls in play. His fastball's at 99. He's got a sinker, sweeper, changeup, and this gyro slider. Mets number 15 prospect on MLB Pipeline. He's number 12 on Joe DeMayo's list. Thought he was going to come up this point at some point this season, but as a reliever. I didn't think they were gonna. There was all this talk that he can't handle being a starter. He's gonna probably be a reliever. But look, here he is getting ready to start game 1 against the St. Louis Cardinals of the doubleheader. What are you looking for out of Blade Tidwell in his debut?
I want, first and foremost, I just hope he soaks it all in. He's playing in a great park. He's playing against a historic franchise. I just hope he has family out there. I think that's the most important thing. I just want him to enjoy that. It's a big day for him. It's a big day for the organization. Or organizational graduate is going to be making a big league start. It always is important for this team to always represent from within. So that is very important in my eyes. As you know, I've talked to you many times. I've always been very coy or, shy to fall in love with any of the kids. But I grew a liking to Blade Tidwell, especially in spring, and I saw him against a lot of major league hitters, and he fared very well. And I kind of take AAA as just kind of like you clock in, you clock out. I have a hard time finding anything to take away from AAA as something of substance. So I understand what Mendy's saying with the hard luck and just his fastball is live. So you know what? Whatever you get, to me, in my opinion, today from Blade Tidwell should be just to be happy for him, in my eyes. His game that he starts, if the Mets can pull out a win for him, cool, awesome. But just, everybody should be doing their very best to support the kid, especially the guys on the team, and I think they'll do an amazing job of that. It could be the start of something beautiful. It could be the start of some sort of, adjustment for him. I initially thought that they would do that opener thing and then have him go for 4 innings type thing. That kind of, new way of how they're approaching certain spot starts. But if they're giving him the start, cool. It would not shock me if he goes 3 innings and really do really well. Would not shock me if he goes a little longer and has a little bit of ups and downs. For me personally, I just want to see the kid. I just want to see how the kid reacts to what's coming to him, because that's when you see something in someone, when you see how they react. You can't really, especially for a pitcher too, you can't really set the tone without kind of letting everybody know who you are and why you're here. You know what I'm saying? So that first leadoff walk or those 2 leadoff walks and there's 2 men on base and he gets a ground ball double play and then gets a strikeout, to me, that's a home run right there. And I'll take that, and I'm very happy. And we're starting to shed those nuances of having failed prospects never touch the major league field, right? And we're starting to get rid of those constant negative folks who just say we don't ever have this or we don't have, and it's starting to. This is what organizations do, winning ones. They give chances to players from within that earn it, and I think he's earned it. It is his time. Like you, I felt like he could have been up a lot sooner as a reliever or as in some sort of role. But me personally, if he's here now and he gives you some sort of life, he should be here for the long haul. So let him rock, do right by him, and just make sure that his health is in. I just don't want a Christian Scott situation where, you know, I remember there was talks about him being overworked and they needed him at the time, and he was kind of put in a position that wasn't fair to him, unfortunately, because at the time the Mets were kind of going through some kind of growing pains or whatever. I don't think that's the case now. This is a winning ball club. Give the kid a chance. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, and I remember from spring training, it wasn't a spring breakout game, but there was a game either against the Cardinals or the Astros where he had a really tough first inning. Came out of it, but the innings afterward, he pretty much dominated.
Yeah.
And if he can build off of something like that we see in this game, that would be great, especially against a major league lineup that we're getting today in the St. Louis Cardinals.
And, you know, to your point, real quick, not to interrupt you, I believe he faced the Cardinals twice in spring training. So it's also a perfect
it might have been the Cardinals then. It was either Cardinals or Astros because we played them so many times during spring training. So it might have been the Cardinals. Stan from Westport saying, imagine if Tidwell goes 7. Could happen.
Oof.
Young dude might have the stamina to extend innings. If so, it is big. They are so strict with pitch count. So I think it depends on the pitch count. Like if he is mowing through this team and he's got like 40 or 50 pitches through 5, he may get a 6th inning. 7 inning, a little strong. We've only got one, I think, that did 7 innings. That was Kodai Senga this season. So it may be wishful thinking.
Do you think like
but 60? Awesome.
Do you think like 60, 70 pitches, something like that?
I'm gonna say around 60 to 75 pitches
if
he's going well. I think that's where they cut. That's where they seem to have. They always do it to start the season with their starters. So I'm going to say 60 to 75 is the max. Definitely 75 after that. I can't see him pitching much more of that. John Sapinaro saying, what are you looking out for? 3 things: stuff, and stuff. Absolutely.
He also has a little bit of like, and I think Met fans love this shit because they soak this shit up. He has that little bit of the little bravado on the mound where he'll strike a guy out, he'll kind of like fist pump and he'll be like, fuck yeah, or something like that, or he'll like, like he does have that. So I think Met fans will enjoy that if he gets to the opportunity. Sorry for the curse. My bad. I just realized the curse. Sorry about that.
Armand, it makes it authentic. It makes the show authentic.
Sorry about that.
Like, we'll leave it.
I know there's kids watching. My bad.
Armand in the chat is our news source today. Per Will Salmon, Danny Young will have Tommy John surgery. I mean, once you even just mention it, you know that it's going to happen. Once they said it like a couple days ago, we all knew that it was just bound to happen. So we'll get into him a little bit later with the injuries and fatigue this team is going through. D saying so much Mets knowledge in one place. Hit that like, LFGM. Yes, hit the like, hit the subscribe, not only for Subway to Shea, but for the Shea and Sons podcast, which is getting ready to ramp up their content right back from vacation in Puerto Rico. You guys are at, right?
Yeah, a little family break. It was a nice time, nice reset. Honestly, like I'm actually like, I don't know, this the weirdest vacation I ever took, where like there wasn't much that went down, but like I feel like I'm starting on like 0 every day because like it was so slow paced that I'm like, oof, like I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like I went to the movies yesterday and I was almost like out of it. So I don't know.
Feel refreshed.
Yeah, I do.
That's what's most important. Feeling refreshed. Let me ask you this: are you surprised that they went with Blade Tidwell instead of Brandon Sproat or Dom Hamill, who didn't get the call?
Yeah, I actually thought it would have been a no-name situation. I was like fully prepared that it could have been a pitcher that we never really even heard of that probably would have gotten a few
type.
Yeah, or something like that. I was totally I was like, oh, okay. You know what? Good. It's May. It's time. He spent a month in AAA. You know what? Hey, you know, I don't really say this often because I have a big mouth, but I was kind of like speechless. I was like, wow, they did it. And if I'm not mistaken, maybe you remember better than I, Christian Scott was called up in May too, right?
He was.
So maybe there is a time frame for this, you know?
He definitely was. On the farm, continuing with these pitchers. Nolan McLean, last start, 6
Oh
innings pitched,
man.
5 hits, no runs, 4 strikeouts. He has a 1.37 ERA this season. The Mets look like they are finally developing again good pitching. And I say that they've done it in the past. And it's finally looked like it continues. Or you could throw Jonah Tong in there as well. I think he had a 10 strikeout game. Are any of these prospects you're most impressed with? Is it Nolan McLean? Is it any of the other guys that are out there?
I'm trying my best not to fall in love with them, man. I'm trying my best. Trying my best.
They're making
But
it hard.
yeah, they're impressing. And this Nolan McLean guy might be the best pitcher that they have. And there's been talks about him maybe just being like the next closer or a dominant reliever. I don't know how you can't give that guy an opportunity to start. I think there is something there. I don't know how these deep lying scouts are going to view him on the major league level, but they have something there. There is listen, Christian Scott was like the chosen one because there was no one else to choose from. So it wasn't that he was bad. It was just like right time, right place for him, right? And if you fast forward a year, look, we got a Blade Tidwell coming up. You got a Jonah Tong somewhere down in the wings. You have a Nolan McLean who, to me, he looks like, and shout out to all my Star Wars fans, he looks like the Anakin Skywalker of all the Jedis that were growing down in the farm. Because it's something about watching those clips, and we all know that's why I love to put out the clips that are only good. But
Yeah.
when we see those clips from Nolan McLean, there is like a lot to like enjoy. So I'm rooting for him, and even the batters are kind of coming around. Shout out to Ernest Dove. Hopefully I said that right. Dove Ernest. But he is like the brain with everything. I remember he was on your show recently, and his knowledge for the farm is top of the line. I really recommend everybody to give him some love. When he talked about just the Brooklyn team, their hitting and their growth, and like no one ever gives love to the Brooklyn team. So where they're coming along is awesome. Honestly, look, today, Blade Tidwell, I think that's the game where everyone can sit back and just can look at your fellow Met fan and be happy for the organization, be happy that you're a Met fan and look what they're doing, with the organization. And then, hopefully we can steal both games. That'll be a great opportunity. And let's not forget, there's also another Met graduate on the mound today, and it's Tyler McGill. And look at what Tyler McGill's turned his career into. I mean, I think me and you were huge critics of the man.
Of course.
Huge critics. Yeah. And I can say this wholeheartedly. He might be the best pitcher on the team right now. Might be. And it's crazy to say that, but kudos to him.
Yeah, and he has been pitching consistently. You mentioned Ernest Dove. There's one pitcher, you want to talk about closer, that we have to keep in the back of our heads. This kid, Ryan Lambert.
Yep, him too.
Yeah, that's someone we're going to have to – he mentioned him during our spring breakout episode, and ever since he talked about him, I just keep seeing – obviously, we see the highlights like you mentioned, but just throwing 100 and –
Did you see that there's like a new it's hard to keep up with them. There's like a Spanish kid, a new one that he's just
fast.
Los Santos or something like that, or where this guy came from, you couldn't even I can't even tell you, but everyone's saying, well, watch out, this is the next guy. I'm like, where are they getting these kids?
I don't know, but I will say this. I'm glad that they're developing pitching, because the strategy moving forward for this team, and probably every team should be doing this, is you develop your starting pitching, because you're not going to want to pay some of these starters to come onto this team, the amounts of money that they've been requiring to pitch 5 innings and then to get hurt and get Tommy John surgery.
Best point.
You rather just have that within house with your own pitchers. You go, you pay for the shiny hitter like we did with Juan Soto, pay for the position players, and develop your starting pitching.
Look, Corbin Burns is his first time in his career on the IL, and they're talking.
We did know that was coming, though, right? Like we kind of saw that. That's why nobody wanted to bring him to the Nets.
Look, big money starter. Corbin Burns on the shelf. Blake Snell on the shelf. Like, guys, it's there. There's this guy, David Stearns. They call him a boy genius for a reason.
Yeah. And he'll continue to do his method of putting a winning team together. And I've liked what I've seen so far. So that's been great. Matt Iben as the other half of Tell Mets do his part, saying scouting circles are speaking louder and louder on McLean being a top 100 prospect.
Beautiful.
Also, John Saponaro saying, I know aces are hard to forecast as they come out of nowhere, but he's a middle of the rotation arm. Some of these prospects now have massive upside. I agree.
That's great.
But the thing is, the great thing about this is we have depth.
Yes.
We didn't have it before. And now we're starting to have depth when it comes to these pitchers. We haven't even seen, like I said, we haven't seen Brandon Sproat, who's someone, I think it was Rosie K who posted that it might have been his, he might have already pitched. Yeah. You think he's pitched. So maybe that's why they didn't call him up. But also, Dom Hamill's there as well as a backstop.
You don't miss the days of Thomas Bolecki. You don't miss the days of, what was that? Oh, we had a spot starter against
from the Phillies. He was like, there's this guy from the Phillies that we brought in.
That he got killed against the Braves like 19-2 or so.
No. I you know what? They've been so bad that the names have been erased. Thanos snapped his fingers and erased all those names from my brain. So they are all gone. David Colazo in the chat saying, "Shout out, fellas."
Jared Eichhoff. Sorry, I just
Jared
saw it.
Eichhoff. Yes, Jared Eichhoff.
It was so bad. Oh my God, he was so bad.
Awful. I don't miss those days of seeing him out in the 2021 season. That's for sure. David Cloud is saying, shout out, fellas. Need y'all doing more work together, too, of the best. Appreciate the kind words. Me and Keith are always in conversation to work together. Anthony. We always are doing some sort of collab for the Subway to Shane Sons podcast there. So
love you, brother.
Let's get into the kind of the injuries and fatigue when it comes to this bullpen. Someone had already mentioned Danny Young and that he'll need Tommy John surgery. AJ Minter on the IL with a lat strain. Now I'm hoping this is not the serious injury. He could miss the rest of the season as well, but I'm hoping that there's some glimmer of hope that we get him back. I always want two lefties in the bullpen, and now we have none. So that's a struggle here. He got off to a great start. 11 innings pitched. He had 14 strikeouts, 1.64 ERA. Danny Young was okay. 8 in the third innings pitched. He had 13 strikeouts, but a 4.32 ERA. How crazy is it that the best we get of Danny Young, his last 5 batters, he struck out. He goes off into the sunset and now has to have Tommy John surgery here.
He struck out some big batters too, man.
Big ones.
Those weren't some, it's fun in Metland to like immediately label a guy as I don't like him, and it becomes a trend. And then when he does good, it's like it goes quiet, right? Like no one wants to give the guy any love. But the second his arm turns into spaghetti, we're like, oh my God, we miss him. But he was coming into his own, and he was really, really trying to, like, he was really not trying. He actually did find, a role on this team. And he was an afterthought last year when he was brought on. No one gave a rat's what about Danny Young. Seeing him now this year to start, it was a little rough. And then he grew into a role, and it was like, man, him and Minter, and now they're both gone. And like you said, Thanos snap. It's unfortunate. I honestly think that this is why David Stearns is here. This is the real, version of you can kind of put your finger to the throb of where David Stearns is going to find a kick out of this team. If you think about it, you're missing 3 starters right now. You're missing Paul Blackburn, you're missing Sean Manaea, you're missing Frankie Montas. There is those 3 moves. Whenever they occur, that means there's going to be an alternative move. So it would not shock me if there is some sort of guy in the bullpen that's movable up and down. It wouldn't shock me is that kid who pitched the other day, Waddell. I think he is probably the next in line to just get a chance and be there when they need him. Call him up against a team that's really bad against a lefty, and I guess mix and match. But they have a lot of roster reconstructing coming. I don't know. This is why we sit back and we let David Stearns does his thing and do his thing, because like I said, you take all the bad and you learn from the good. You learn from the bad and you turn it into good. And there's also evolution to a team every year. So we have to see and how David Stearns gets a tick out of a bullpen. And another thing too is that we don't know if he's gonna ride with a guy when he's high. We don't know if he's gonna ride with the guy if he's struggling just to eat up some innings and stuff like that. So there's gonna be some, as a Met fan, some patience to be needed with the bullpen. And look,
Yeah.
Brooks Raley is maybe
Yeah.
second half. Maybe they just got to get to the second half, and maybe they could say, but then, relying on him after his injury. So it's going to be a little bit of a, let's see, throw something at the wall and see if it sticks situation.
Yeah, absolutely. John's saying the only problem with Young is he's a prototypical situational lefty.
Yeah.
Before the 3-batter rule, every
agree with
team
that.
would carry a Danny Young stand from Westport, saying Mets have already lost a lot of guys, Minaya, Montas, Minter, Young, but they overcome with new bodies and situational pitching
True.
management, which is what you just mentioned. Gavo Milano saying Felipe De La Cruz is our next lefty. He throws
That's the guy,
98
yeah.
with nasty breaking stuff. There's no quick fix for this. Let's just be honest, right? There's
There you
no
go.
quick fix. You probably could, like you mentioned, the two names you mentioned, Brandon Waddell, who pitched 4 1/3 innings, got 4 strikeouts against Arizona out of the bullpen. Now they're saying they're going to keep him stretched out, but I wonder if this situation with Danny Young changes the thought process on that, where maybe he does get brought back up in a bullpen role. Also, you mentioned Brooks Raley. He signed a 1-year deal with the club option coming back from Tommy John surgery last May. So we may see him probably June or July.
Mhm.
It's a thing where the Mets are just going to wait it out. I know someone had mentioned Andrew Chafin, and I'm like, we are
Every
way
year.
past
Every
Andrew
year,
Chafin.
man.
Done.
Every year, man.
No more
Every
Andrew
year.
Chafin. Get it out
Mhm.
of your system. Get
We'll
it out
be
of your
like
thought
old and
process.
gray, and people, they should have signed that Chafin guy back in 2024 or 2000. You'll never hear the end of Andrew Chafin in the Met fandom, honestly.
Yeah. Once
Well,
we
you know what's a good thing too? They could also trade for a reliever at
They
some
could.
point.
They
Possible.
could. So, and I'm pretty sure that there are, relievers that get dropped that maybe the Mets will get their hands on, and
Yep.
the pitching lab will get their hands on and help them to pitch better. We already saw Genesis Cabrera. I don't know if I like what I saw from him, but we do have him as well, and he might be another option to continue to pitch here. But
Yeah.
as we transition from the bullpen, we got to talk about this Clay debate. Okay. Impressed or not with Clay Holmes? 4-1, 2.95 ERA. He's got 39 strikeouts in 36 2/3 innings pitched. And you had a great graphic that I copied and pasted onto a panel here with all the numbers. Explain some of the numbers out there.
Oh, those are pretty good.
We already talked about the ERA. And what has looked so good for you when it comes to Clay Holmes?
My favorite part about watching Clay Holmes is that every inning to me is different. And I feel like that's the best part about Clay Holmes is that there's an inning where he looks like he's been a starter for about 5 years. And then there's an inning where he gets himself into trouble and gets himself out of trouble. And then there's an inning where there's these soft contact hits where it's like, how did that get through the hole? And the team kind of helps him and bails him out. And then there's these innings where he'll walk maybe one guy or two guys, and then he'll strike out the side. So it's like you get a whole bag with Clay. And I just feel like the result is always the same. I think Clay Holmes knows how to get himself out of an inning better than most pitchers. And it's kind of interesting. He can get himself into trouble. I think that's the thing, though. But he can get himself out of it. We highlight the worrisome issues with Clay, but we never highlight the results. And I think that's the biggest key with Clay is that he can find himself. And this is a guy who pitched in pressure cooker situations in the Bronx. And he had ups and downs, yes. But he also understood how to escape situations. And you start to see that. And his stuff is good. You could argue he has the best stuff on the team. His stuff moves better than probably anybody's. And the thing about him is that you kind of just worry, oh, when's the wheel going to fall off? I don't think that should be the thought process with him. I think the when I watch him, the only thing that truly worries me is fatigue. I know he kind of like he does take like a little bit of a lap around the mound and does the huffing and puffing. So I think it's kind of gonna get to a point where he's gonna be fully like revved up and be okay to go at some point. Like I'd say in the summertime. But I love how he escapes innings. I love how he battles, and I love how sometimes it seems like he'll truly stick to something. You're like, why are you throwing that ball inside if you can't locate it? And he still does it and still does it. And eventually a batter just makes a mistake and swings, and you get these little dribblers to Lindor or these little dribblers to Pete, and he makes the most out of it. I honestly can't tell you the last time I seen, and I don't want to jinx him. I don't remember some guy. I think it was the Marlins series in New York, like early in April, where I saw one guy hit the ball hard off him. Nobody hits the ball hard off Clay Holmes. They don't. And I think he is the escape artist that the Mets desperately need right now. And I think, listen, you can be worried. You can be like, typical Met fan. I'm not sure. This is not going to work. Everything's going to go wrong. Well, the best part about this process is that the Mets finally attempted this process, and it's probably something that the Mets should always consider because they have shown early results that it works. If you pick the right guy, put him in this lab, put him in the right position to win, this lineup will take care of everything else.
Yeah, when you put him in the right position, like he is a better ground ball pitcher than what we got from Marcus Stroman, because Marcus Stroman also a ground ball pitcher. When you put the best defensive lineup behind him, he is going to succeed. That's where he failed last season because the Yankees never had the best defensive lineup behind him. And the errors came in, the walks. He's still giving up walks. Their walks are high. Yeah. But I think a big thing, he hasn't given up any home runs. That's huge. He limits runs to maybe 1 or 2 runs a game.
Yep.
Like we mentioned, 2.95 ERA. I'm so impressed with the guy that was closing, lost his closer's job, went into middle relief, excelled there in the postseason, comes here across town, and is pitching 5 innings a game.
He went 6 Friday.
He went 6 Friday. He's doing the job we've asked him to do. And like you said, the only concern I have is fatigue. This guy is going to usurp his innings pitched probably by June. Because he comes in 1 inning of relief and that's it.
60 innings last year as a reliever. He's already past almost 40 now. He's almost there already.
It's going to be interesting to see how they have him go forward when we get to June, July, August. Is he still going to be starting? How? Because it's really like having a kid up here. Like having Matt Harvey come up and having an innings limit on him. That's what like, how are they going to deal with that? Especially when you're going to really need him for some type of postseason run. Like what happens when Minaya and Montes comes back? Do they, give him an extra day rest? Will we start seeing him, kind of shift back to the bullpen for now and then bring him back to the rotation sometime later on? I'm very intrigued by how they handle this whole situation.
It's fascinating. And I love that we don't have the answer. To me, that's the best part about the whole thing. We don't have the answer. And the best part about it is that we don't need the answer because that's the answer David Stearns needs. And I think the process of which they go about the whole 2025 campaign with Clay Holmes is probably going to be the key to the season, because if he continues this route, you're going to sit there and say, how can you move this guy to the pen, or how can you? But like you said, you made a good point. He's a chameleon. He adjusts better than any pitcher. And I think they stretched him out, so they're going to probably keep him always stretched out. But he seems like a guy in a moment, and they need it. There has been so many times, especially in the postseason. I can see this team will make the playoffs. I can see him being in the playoffs. Let's just say we end the year and he's our best pitcher. I can see Clay Holmes not get a start in the playoffs, but be the first guy out the bullpen, because that's what they're going to do. They did it last year with David Peterson, and I would not shock me. And I think if you really, really sit down and just take the Met blinders off, I think that's the best route to go. This is why they got about 7 starters, because when the playoffs come, they're gonna back end starters. They're gonna starter and then another starter, and then they'll get to Edwin or something like that. And I just think they just want to get through the season healthy and make sure that these guys are revved up enough so that when the playoffs come at any moment, Mendy makes the call and then we move on. But I've been impressed. I just think that as a Met fan, patience is very difficult. So you just got to have a little bit of it.
Rosie K is saying Mets pitchers need to go longer in games. I agree. It's just I think there's a process. I think there's a process with Stearns and Hefner in the lab and how they
Yes.
build these guys up, that where we saw in September, the starting staff was pretty much untouchable.
Yeah.
Jose Quintana gave up 3 earned runs all month. So I think there's a process, and a lot of it's not just the Mets. A lot of teams are not allowing their starting pitchers to go past 5 innings or a 75 to 85 pitch count. John saying Holmes will give you around 150 innings. The 6-man will help over the course of 162 if he's at his limit in the postseason. What a weapon to have in the pen.
Amen.
And only then. Stan from Westport saying, I'm telling you, Holmes is the best physical condition of any of the Mets pitchers. The he can't last is a Yankees trope. Don't fall for it like Soto is unhappy. BS. Holmes is awesome. So we'll continue to monitor how he progresses, and the intrigue of that second half of the season is there. As we wrap up the show, I wanted to talk about some of the questionable calls from Carlos Mendoza. And I'm not a manager. You're not a manager, but we do see these things, and we got to comment on them, on how we feel. I don't know, not bringing in Diaz after warming him up, not once, but like twice in a series.
Yeah.
Taking out Waddell, but leaving in Davinsky too long. I feel like some of these moves, they were very interesting. Also, not sticking with the hot hand in a guy like Acuna and inserting McNeil because of maybe the history that he has as a player. Batting Marte fourth. Some moves have been very interesting. I'm usually one that just sits back with these two because I have full faith in Stearns and Mendy, especially with the way Mendy is able to turn these. We mentioned it earlier, how he's able to turn losses and make them into longer winning streaks. But there are some questionable decisions I thought he's made.
And real quick, if this is not a you thing, for anybody out there who thinks managers are puppets, then don't blame them when they make a very controversial move or don't make one, because if they're puppets, then you got to blame the guy upstairs. But this is why managers matter. I am very pro managers have an impact on a baseball game. I understand the front office makes a call, but the manager has to manage the game, right? And I think right now, when there's moments so far with this team that they can kind of go missing, you can't make that a recipe where the manager is pressing too many buttons or not pressing enough buttons. And for me, I think Mendy last year, actually, in my humble opinion, was able to win some games on his own. I thought last year Mendy, like on his own, managed a W. And I was like, damn, we hit a home run with this guy. And I haven't really felt that way this year because I maybe they're still trying to get to know one another or and it's funny, they're winning games. It's kind of crazy to say that. But I just think that Mendy, he starts pressing certain buttons in the most oddest situations, or he starts not pressing buttons in the most needy situations. And I'm like, this doesn't really feel like normal, right? Because you could be wrong or you can have an opinion or something like that, but you could also sit there and say, there's no way Gary Cohen and me are constantly agreeing on what's happening right here, because Gary Cohen seems to be like the catalyst to have you wondering, like, and mind you, yes, Gary has moments where you question yourself, but I feel like almost every Mendy kind of blunder, I hate to use that word, but like Gary Cohen is right there with you in your living room saying, this is interesting. So listen, I would prefer that the team makes Mendy's decisions a lot easier, right? Yeah. Score your runs and let Mendy kind of not really have to do much managing at some point. But there are going to be moments where Mendy has to kind of put this team on his back and be the fourth hole hitter, right? Mendy's going to have to be the guy to find some runs in this team. And I think that we have to see if Mendy can really back up his first year's campaign. I love the guy. I think the guy is amazing. I truly think he's just as fascinating as David Stearns. It's a little bit rocky this year, and I think it's fair as a Met fan to call it out, but also call it out with some optimism and glass half full, because guys make mistakes. We listen. This is what you said. We're not managers. We're just spectators at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you take it and you move on, right?
Yeah.
It happened. You move on. It's nothing to linger about. Like John says, I can't get mad at any of Mendy's moves so far. That's the day in and day out.
Correct.
The only one he didn't like was the Diaz one, and I think we all can agree on the
Yeah.
Diaz one being the kind of the issue there. But maybe it is a kind of early April getting to know this team and what they're all about. So when we get into the later part of the season, Mendy's winning some of these games, and you're like, man, that was a great move.
Amen.
So, we'll see some of what Mendy has to offer as well, moving, later and later on into season. It is a lot harder to start the season when your starting pitchers can only go, 5 innings and you're relying on the bullpen. Who's tired, who's not, who can pitch multiple innings, who can't. But it does feel like Edwin Diaz has kind of, they got a little bit of a leash on Edwin Diaz right now. And for a guy that he really didn't pitch as much last season, and, he should be fully healthy. I don't know if it's a mental thing for him, but, the contract that he had, you want to talk about, making a lot of money and producing. For the contract that he has, and I know he's got 7 saves on the season already, I kind of got to see a little, it's early, but I definitely got to see a little bit more from my closer here.
Or get more information, right? Like, can we just know what's up? Like, we're not even asking for the moon. Can we know why you guys are saying, yeah, go warm up, but yeah, go sit down, but yeah, go warm up again, but yeah, sit down. What? This is not, I didn't see that at all last year. So that's where like my comment about like last year, what was going on. I felt like a little bit more in tune. And this organization, to me, they don't lie to you. They're very straight with you. They don't lie to you. So they feel like it wasn't the right situation. Maybe it was a conversation, right? Let's warm them up for an inning. And if it doesn't favor us when it's time to call them, then we'll just sit them. I could totally see that. It could possibly, like, I'm Hefner, you're Mendy. We could have that. Like, let's give him a 15-minute rev up. And if we don't need him, then we'll sit him down. And maybe it was his scheduled day to pitch, so it doesn't really hurt him at the end of the day. We'll figure out a way to end the game without him. Blah, blah, blah. Stretch him out. Keep him fresh, so on and so on. But just kind of tell us a little bit, because we're sitting here saying, well, what if he's hurt? Or what if this guy doesn't trust him? Or what if he's not confident? And these what ifs are like the worst part about being a Met fan, because we had tons of them nonstop throughout the years in the past with other regimes. Yeah. We really don't get that anymore. So when you get a glimmer of it, it's like, come on, guys, just do better by the fans a little bit,
Yeah, and we knew with Edwin Diaz in years prior, right? Like, okay, he can't come in this situation, and he can't do that situation. He can only come in a clean. It's like Jose Budo right now. Only can come in a clean inning. If he comes in with men on bases, he's not the same as he was last season. Edwin Diaz, he could only come in a clean inning. He can't have any men on base. They're gonna steal bases on. Like, there was so much. Oh, can't pitch 2 innings, and then they were able to build him up. So, I hope, knock on wood, fingers crossed, praying that Edwin Diaz is okay. I want to see him succeed. Yeah. I just hope as we get towards the latter part of the season that they kind of, take the chain off of the leash and let Edwin Diaz be Edwin Diaz again. As we wrap up here, just a couple of news and happenings with this team. Congrats to Pete Alonso and Luis Angel Acuna. Pete Alonso, Player of the Month in the National League. Luis Angel Acuna, Rookie of the Month for the National League.
Awesome.
Both homegrown New York Mets. What more can you say?
I mean, just let the good times roll, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Let the good times roll.
And a lot of people didn't think Luis Angel Acuna was going to be a big league player. You were one of those. I don't believe that.
I didn't think he was going to be this good. He's really good. I think he should be starting every day. I didn't see it. But look, this is why I'm behind a mic on the screen on YouTube, Bill. You know what I'm saying? Not working
it's just I rather eat crow, honestly, and I've made
mistakes
in the past.
Let's be wrong all the time.
Yeah.
Rather than Mendy in them, I'd rather them be right. Let me be wrong. 100%.
Yep. Acuna stealing bases.
I love watching him run. Oh God.
Mrs. Subway, she said, what happened to his power? And I was like, he just came up into the league. No one really knew him much. So they adjusted to him. And now he's adjusting to the league and hitting the way we thought he was. Speedy on the bases, plays great defense. So happy for both Pete Alonso, Luis Angel Acuna. Final note, Dedeno Nunez should be back. I think Mike Puma posted it this morning. We are seeing Dedeno Nunez. Be interested to see how he's used in the bullpen. We talk about Edwin Diaz. It's going to be interesting to see how Dedeno Nunez is used.
Yeah, huge. This is a guy that is a bridge right into Edwin, and maybe when there is a day where Edwin is no longer here, that is your closer. That's how much I think the Mets are truly in love with this guy. I think the guy last year before he got hurt was sensational. I think those were those innings you didn't even know that they happened. You look down, you look up, the innings over. That's because Dedeno Nunez was in the game, and I really, 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 really am excited for him, and I hope that he has a full healthy year, and I think it'll be a very, very, very good addition to the bullpen right now, more than anything, because we need it.
And that pitching lab unlocked something into that kid where he, like you said, you go just to get a glass of water or get a snack and the inning's over. You missed it already.
Yep.
But great to have Dedeno Nunez back, hopefully 100% healthy and ready to go. Final note here, John Sapanero with a little bit of breaking news. Acuna at third base in game 1 of the doubleheader that Blade Tidwell will be pitching. Great to see. Keith, appreciate you so much. Make sure you share the socials and what you got coming up.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm probably live today. I still haven't unpacked. There's life is kicking my ass right now. So if you could just bear with me, I'll probably be on Twitter most of the day, to be fair. I was not expecting a doubleheader, but Mother Nature, put that on us. I have to see in-laws today, so it's going to be tough, but I'm going to be locked in. So just kicking it with Keith for now on Twitter. YouTube, just give me some time. I got to reset, but most importantly, guys, stick together. Stick together. We are a good baseball team. Positive vibes. This is legit, guys. And this is without the generational guy being generational. So just keep that in mind. We got a generational first baseman, though. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, as it says at top, Queen Baseball hashtag. Make sure you're in with that.
Acuna home run for the missus. Stubby to Shea.
You know what? Maybe it'll happen. Maybe she did call a couple of home runs last year.
Yeah,
that I was surprised about. So we'll definitely see that. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. Subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you like this video as well. Share it, and like he said, Shea and Sons, make sure you're subscribing to them. Shout out to 171 of you who are part of this show today. We are going to be live every Sunday at 10 a.m. I was trying to figure out a schedule, and this one seems like it works. Yeah, this seems like a great time. I know it's right before series ends, but it's great to have everybody here up in the morning, getting you ready for the final game of series. So appreciate everyone. You want to listen to this show? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, subscribe. But for Anthony Rivera of Subway to Shea, myself, as well as Keith, Shea and Sons, we appreciate you for joining us. Enjoy the Mets doubleheader, and always remember, let's go Mets.